Joining us now is Kachiofia with stories trending around the world. And today she has very catchy stories.
I love the way you make these jokes. It's starting to catch on. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good
morning.
Good morning, Rafai. How are you doing?
Morning, Kachi. I'm sure, obviously, Dr.
Fantastic.
Abati.
All right, now let's begin with the fact that reactions have trailed a video of a yet-to-be-identified woman who appeared to be voting for the All Progressives Congress. Now, this was during the local government and local council development area elections in Lagos State on Saturday. She was seen voting in multiple ballot papers, and in this about 30-second footage that appeared on social media, the woman was seen thumbprinting ballot papers with several other ballot papers in her hands. Now, of course, it's obvious the party she's voting for. The action of this woman appears to be overvoting, which is actually against the provisions of Section 53 of the Electoral Act 2010, which states that no voter shall vote for more than one candidate or record more than one vote in favor of any candidate at any one election. Now, it also stipulates in 122 that a person, if caught engaging in overvoting, is liable on conviction to a maximum fine of 500,000 or 12 months imprisonment or both. What I find really sad about this is how it's circulating on social media, but there isn't any seriousness as to what is going to happen or the repercussion for doing this. You know, reports from the elections on Saturday also pointed towards voter apathy, you know, with a lot of residents saying, oh, they had no idea about the elections, or other people saying things like they were just discouraged to even go out to vote. And then you see a video like this and you ask yourself why they will not feel that way if this is now the butt of jokes on social media as opposed to being taken serious. I mean, is anything going to happen following the video that's been released?
That's the prayer that something is done. And I do hope that LISEC, which is the electoral body for these elections, local government elections, I do hope and pray that that particular polling unit was not counted as election has taken place, because this was a sham. But Kachi, this is exactly why some politicians would never want electronic voting or electronic transmission of results, because they fear they are unpopular and they will continue to rig the system to stay in power. But we should not blame the politicians alone. This woman, as you have rightly said, has committed an offense. All in the name of what? For what reason? For few change. And people will say poverty, but I don't think that's an excuse. That's no excuse to commit such a crime. If she's found, she should be made to pay and face the full wrath of the law. We should also stop there. We cannot blame the politicians and the people alone. In this particular polling unit, how does she have access to several ballot papers without the connivance or collusion of the electoral officials on ground? We also need to ask questions about the security officials. Over 25,000 more police officers were sent to Lagos for these elections, plus the ones that were on ground. So it is only thinkable that there was at least one security operative at this particular polling unit. So it looked as if there was a connivance in this particular polling unit where this has happened and wherever this has been replicated by the electoral officials, the people themselves, the political parties, and security operatives to conduct this sham of an election. But we wonder why the local government elections, which are supposed to be vibrant because they're closer to the people, they're the tier of government that should be more responsible to the people because they're closer. You wonder why they are so useless sometimes. This is why.
Okay, here it is. A number of issues involved here.
Yeah.
The obvious one is electoral fraud. And this is not the only video of its type that was in circulation over the weekend. If you look at the Electoral Act from Section 50, and in different parts up to Section 131, 133, prescribes punishment, for electoral offenses, and you just quoted Section 122. But the problem that we have had since the return to democracy is that those, sections of the law are never enforced. Even when electoral offenders are apprehended, only very few of them get prosecuted, and at the end of the day, the matter disappears because there is no political will on the part of the political elite itself to deal with the challenge of electoral fraud in Nigeria. And that is why, there have been demands over the years from the Waste Commission, recommending an Electoral Offenders Commission, and in recent times, the attempt to come up with an Electoral Offences Bill, Electoral Offences Commission Bill. So what this means, of course, is that our democratic process is always compromised because there is no political will, no commitment to really deal with electoral fraud. And isn't that a picture, a reflection of many other aspects of Nigerian life? The second issue that you raised is voter apathy. Now, in 2017, it was the same issue in Lagos State, voter apathy. People didn't want to come out because, local government elections are not taken seriously by the people. The assumption is that whatever ruling party that is in a particular state will have done whatever it could, to make sure that it sweeps all the local councils that are available, both at the chairmanship and at the councillorship level. And here, again, in 2021, we have the same situation in Lagos State. 13,323 polling units, 57 local government areas and LCDAs, and 337 wards. And then you then find that with all of these statistics, the people did not want to come out because some of them will feel, well, our votes will not count. And I think we must continue to insist that people's votes count because it's a clear demonstration, that people's votes do not count. Adeso has made a point about collusion. Yes, you're absolutely correct because this was done at a polling unit. And the woman went ahead and, submitted 8 different ballot papers. The other issue, I think, in Lagos State also has to do with campaign finance. Now, the Lagos State local government state election body, electoral body, LACSIEC, it is called, now made a prescription of about 150,000 naira, even for nomination forms, about 50,000 naira or so for councillor, 75,000 for councillorship. And there were persons who protested. But the Lagos State, Independent Electoral Commission insisted that it will not review the forms. Now, in the case of the political parties, the APC said that if you wanted to be chairman, you must pay 2 million if you are a man. If you are a woman, you must pay 1 million. If you want to run for a councillor, you must bring 500,000. So that in itself excluded a number of people. And then, of course, the other political parties did not have the capacity to challenge the ruling party in the state. A party called the AAC, African Action Congress, who only field candidates in 2 local governments, Ikorodu North and Agbado Okeodo. So you then find that even without the rigging, there were other structural factors at play that made it very difficult for that local government election to have been very competitive. The only positive side of it that I've seen is that nobody has directly accused the incumbent governor, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as having had any hand in an attempt to manipulate the process. But whoever the puppeteers are should, of course, be identified. And we hope that the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission will not turn a blind eye to the reports of the disenfranchisement and the fraudulent conduct of some of the electorate.
Absolutely.
Me? My turn? Okay, Kachi. Kachi, when a nation loses its soul, all you see every day will be very soulless acts. And that's what is indicative. I mean, an election that is supposed to be the voice of the people, then it becomes the voice of one woman that can manipulate and take a lot of ballot papers and thumbprint them. So it's not new. And you said the video did not trend on social media or didn't get the reaction. What do you want Nigerians to say? They've seen it one too many times. They saw it in the last election, how they voted, and somebody took the ballot box, threw it on the ground, kicked it, and burnt their votes up. They saw it. Nigerians were there. They were seeing it. And law enforcement agents couldn't do anything about it. And nothing was done. We all moved on. So when you have injustice and evil continue for a while, it gets to a point people become immune. They're like, okay, what next will happen? And that's why they don't come out to vote during elections, because they don't think it works for everybody. And that's why they talked about electronic voting. And when the lawmakers decided to go their own way, not the way of the people, they kept quiet. And that's why when Femi Gbajabiamila came out to say, he's not happy people didn't come out to vote. I'm like, to vote for what? To vote for this? If you want people to vote, make the system fair. I mean, you can't make the system about some people that have political power and you leave other people behind. The problem with Nigeria is we leave so many people behind. Even within the APC, that same political party that you're getting thumbprint, how free and fair was the process that brought forward the candidates in the political primaries? There were protests everywhere. It led to the death of some people. So, as a country, we have a choice to continue with the evil, to continue with this heinous, soulless act, or to stand for the truth and justice of what we want our nation to be. But I tell you something. When we stand for truth and justice, society becomes better. When we stand for evil, society is worse off. And that's the decadence. And again, the audacity of immorality we are seeing in society today. Kachi, I'm not surprised.
Well, let's talk about another situation that you may not be so surprised about. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project and Center for Journalism Innovation and Development, they have filed a lawsuit against President Muhammadu Buhari and the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, asking the court to declare illegal the gag order stopping journalists and broadcast stations from reporting details of terrorist attacks and victims. Now, the suit followed the recent directive by the NBC, that's the National Broadcasting Commission, asking journalists, television and radio stations in Nigeria to stop glamorizing and giving too many details on the nefarious activities of terrorists and kidnappers during their daily newspaper reviews. Well, both groups are seeking an order of perpetual injunction restraining the government of President Buhari or any other persons from imposing fines or other sanctions on broadcast stations for carrying out their constitutional duties of reporting details of terrorist attacks and victims. Now, how this has been described is the rule of law in Nigeria is at war. Because if you consider several sections of the Constitution, let's even bring it to the grande norme, the very body of, law that really dictates the basic law in Nigeria. You look into Section 22, you look into Section 39. This says without remorse, accountability of the government, making sure that, the press, the media, they have the freedom to express what is going on. The media does not create the news, they report on it. Then let's now go international. Article 9 of the African Charter. I mean, there's so much that rides on this, and I think this conversation is essential, but we're going to take a short break now, and then when we return to the show, we'll get in on what is really happening here. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Before the break, we were speaking on SERAP, ordering basically the courts to restrict that gag order that is now being placed on various media houses on reporting terrorist activities, as well as, in their words, the nefarious or glamorization of, the reportage of newspaper headlines by a lot of these broadcast stations. And I honestly just feel the soul of our democracy, the freedom of expression by our media, is in trouble right now.
Am I the only one who thinks that the NBC has got very busy in recent times, busy being controversial with their several memos issued? But let's commend SERAP.
Yeah.
SERAP has been holding government to account through the courts. Advocacy through the courts in democracy is what SERAP has been doing. We commend them for that. But this is not a fight for SERAP alone. It's a fight for everybody. Don't glamorize reportage. Don't glamorize activities of terrorists. What exactly does that even mean? Is the NBC asking us to jettison the basic journalism rule 101 of 5 W's and 1 H? Is that what they're saying? I've read that memo several times when they released it last week, and it was still very vague to me. But let me just conclude by saying the media is not the enemy here. The bandits, the terrorists who are killing our soldiers, abducting our children, raping our women, destroying our farmlands, getting away with it, those are the true enemies, not the media.
Dr. Bati, before you get in, let me just mention they also said that this reportage infringes on the fights against insurgency. So basically, the work that the media is doing is hindering that fight for insurgency. That was also part of that letter.
No, usually what the authorities say, they talk about national security.
Yes.
And they accuse the Nigerian media of reporting stories in a manner that either promotes banditry or terrorism, or criminal conduct, or that is not in the national interest. But the question, the perennial challenge, has always been who determines what is in the national interest.
Yes.
And as Adesua pointed out, look, it's not part of the duty of a journalist to manufacture news from nowhere. They report history as it occurs, history in the making. But all of this falls into a familiar pattern. The attempt, not just under a democratic dispensation, even under the military, to control the media, to gag the media, because power figures, authority figures, there's always been this adversarial relationship between government and the media in Nigeria. But the thing is that since 1859, the media in Nigeria has been a crusading media, and hence, almost on a permanent basis, the relationship between the media and government has been adversarial. But it needs not be so. And that is why we always make the point that government should see the media as part of the development process. There's something called development journalism. And the whole concept of development journalism is a constitutional responsibility. You've already quoted the relevant sections. The only one you did not add is Article 19 of the International Covenant on civil and political rights.
Yes.
All the other sections you quoted are perfect. So again, I think we should commend SERAP and also the Center for Innovation in Journalism. We joined, SERAP to go to court, and they're asking for an order of a perpetual injunction. I hope their prayers are answered in this regard, because it's not just about the media. It's about the scope for human expression, because Section 39 is talking about the freedom of human expression. Yeah. And journalists, also have their own codes, which is why I'm surprised that the NUJ, the NGE, and the other groups are not part of this suit, because this is something that affects not just the media, but the whole of society. And we are also hoping that if, by any chance, the NBC and the government win in court, that when that particular law is about to be enforced, that media houses will challenge the right of the regulatory body to impose fines or to sanction it. But all of this is within, as I said, that framework of an attempt to control the media and to offer a narrow interpretation of what constitutes national security or national interest. We had the social media bill that became controversial. We have had the false information bill that also became controversial. So this battle between the state and the media is not likely to end. But we need the media, and what government should do is to promote free expression and promote the capacity of the Nigerian media to continue to be a beacon for national development.
Exactly. Rufai, let's have you in on the conversation.
I think about last week or last 2 weeks, across all the national dailies, we had a picture of somebody covered in the mouth, and the media then was protesting against this press council bill. Yesterday, I watched on Arise TV in tears when our journalists put the microphone in the mouth of a girl that was just rescued from the den of these terrorists. And she was asked to verbalize her pain, but she was quiet, and all she did was to cry. That's not promotion of bandits. That's just the media at its finest, showing the pains a lot of Nigerians can't verbalize. That's just what it means for a child that is supposed to be sent to school to do their exams, but she's been kidnapped and being violated. And the pain is so much that she cannot verbalize. And that's why it's shocking when you see every attempt by government to stop people from verbalizing that pain. Let the people see the pain. Be honest with the people. The people will support you in ending this banditry. We want an end to it. But when you keep saying it's them against us, then we lose the plot. Our common enemy here are the bandits. Then the government must be on the side of the people. But wasn't it shocking yesterday that as those students were released, we didn't see one single government official, or maybe I didn't see properly, standing with the people. And in all of this, I remember section 14, subsection 2b, that says the primary responsibility of the government is the protection and the security of the lives of people. I rest my case.
Well, let's now speak internationally. The richest church in the world opens up, the only church with a sovereign state. The Vatican published for the first time on Saturday its annual budget for a key department managing property and investments. Now, this is good news. However, it is happening just days before the start of a high-profile trial over a London investment. Now, this is as a once powerful Catholic cardinal and 9 others stand trial at the Vatican this week in an embezzlement scandal that allegedly saw charity funds used in a disastrous London property venture. Now, ex-Cardinal Angelo Becciu, who served as the equivalent of a papal chief of staff for Pope Francis before being fired last year, has been charged with crimes including embezzlement and abuse of office.
Yes, so for me, under the leadership of Pope Francis, we've seen a sort of change from the norm, from the usual. He's seen as a reformer, someone who has even overhauled the existing laws to cater for child abuse, sex abuse in the Catholic Church. No doubt the church, the biggest, has been rocked by several controversies in recent years. In an interview he granted in October last year, he described corruption as an ancient evil that continues to plague the Catholic Church. So he does not only acknowledge it, that it exists, talking about Pope Francis, he also, is taking a position to stamp it out. And that's what makes the difference for me, is understanding that a problem exists, but what are you doing about it? And that's why I think that Pope Francis, has become this reformer everybody's looking up to.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, this investigation, there's many investigations. The hearings will be held tomorrow, but if there's going to be a trial, the trial may not take place until after the summer holiday. But for many watchers of this development, yes, Pope Francis is, impatience, with corruption.
Yes.
And other kinds of misdemeanors within the church. Because the whole idea is to ensure discipline, even with the church itself. And here you have, cardinals, involved in embezzlement of funds belonging to the church. And to be a paradox for many Christians who associate, certain positions in the church with holiness, with piety. To get to the level of a cardinal in the Catholic Church is quite a lot. And the man who is in front of this, at the front line in this regard, whose biretta has been taken away from him, is one of the major figures within the Catholic Church. So that's a paradox. And what it means is that corruption is everywhere. It's not just in government. Universal. Even in the Holy of Holies at the Vatican, you have people, who are involved in this kind of thing. But the thing about it is that, justice hopefully will be done.
It will. It will. Refine less than 30 seconds. Your thoughts on this?
I just ask, what will Peter, the first Bishop of Rome, or the first Pope say about this? That's all I ask. Last week I asked, what will Paul say about what is happening? And I ask today from the Catholic Church, what will Peter, the first bishop of Rome, say about all of this? It's not today we've had cases like that. There's a man called Paul Massinkos, he was an archbishop at a point in time. He ran the Vatican Bank. If you read more about that man, you'll be shocked that this can happen in the house of God. But in all of this, what will Peter, the first bishop of Rome, say?
Thank you, Rufai. Well, that will be all on What's Trending this morning on The Morning Show.
And thank you very much, Kachi.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.